Welcome back to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain. And this morning on Cool Your Heels with Lillian, our special guest is Ryan Mast, the president and owner of Bloem, Bloem, which is a company that deals with plastic, but not just any kind of plastic. So good morning, Ryan. How are you doing this day?
Hey, good morning, Lillian. I appreciate you having me on today. Doing well.
I think it's very important that people understand everything that's going on around them because it gives them a greater appreciation of what they have.
I couldn't agree with you more. Here we're on the heels of Earth Day coming up next week, on April 22, and we have this unique product that we're bringing to market that just emphasizes the importance of recycling plastic, and not only that, but also pulling the plastic out of the ocean and making products that have longevity. It's really been a cool project.
I think it is. Are you associated or know of the project that was started by those two young men who have been collecting plastic off beaches as well as going down to the sea bottoms and collecting the plastic there and then recycling them into bracelets, I believe, and then there's a lady who takes plastic and recycles it into shoes?
I'm familiar with both the projects, and they're inspirational. There's no doubt about it. And what they do, they make these bracelets, which is again another product that has longevity. And I think that's really what's key with this ocean plastic and repurposing it. Sure, plastic can be recycled multiple times, but if it keeps getting discarded and it keeps ending up in the same bad places like the ocean, what good are we doing? And when you put it into a bracelet or you put it into a flower pot, you put it into a product that has longevity, I think that's taking a step further than putting recycled plastic back into a disposable product that just rounds out that cycle again. It's an unhealthy cycle.
I would think so. I think what it really is that we have to modify the behavior of people not to think of the ocean as a huge landfill in which they can just throw whatever they want in, and somehow the sea creatures, the marine animals like turtles or even the dolphins or sometimes sharks, don't like wearing those plastic collars around their necks.
There are so many complex issues in this world. What happens to plastic when it gets just discarded and forgotten about is not one of those complexities. When you throw plastic away into the street or you throw it into a place where it has access to a water stream, the stream goes into a river goes into a lake goes into the ocean, however that circle is, it's going to come back around again. That plastic doesn't go away unless we do something with it. And it of course, is much more complex to get the product or get the material out of the ocean once it's there. Taking care of it on the front end is key, but the fact that we have so much of it there gives us this opportunity to clean it up and repurpose this material. And I wish we didn't have that opportunity, but we do.
Yeah, and I think that we have so much plastic in our culture. I'm from the 50s, and I know we used to use glass for everything. And then came the aluminum small cans for soda to be convenient. And then finally, and the plastic that was used very judiciously. I really don't think that they meant to go overboard in the amount of plastic that now seamlessly is showing up in everything and anything that you use.
I mean,
it's in toys.
Industry, yeah, that's right. I think the plastics industry as a whole, it for a period of time was grow, and now the plastics industry is looking inwardly and responsibly and how to fix this issue that we have, and that's the discarding this material. It doesn't just go away. It has to have a new home. And recycling has become so much more a focus of the industry, and it takes both the consumer's responsibility of buying recycled products, but also us as a manufacturer to use more recycled material to give it an outlet and complete that circle of life, if you want to call it such, with the plastic as opposed to just discarding it and then forgetting about it.
So you use plastic to put in flower pots.
That's right.
Okay, so what does that entail?
So we
do you
do
need
injection molding.
molds or something?
Yeah, we do. It's injection molding process. So we get the material in a pelletized form. It can come to us in various colors, and then we color it to match the product that we ultimately want to deliver to the consumer. And that's really been the struggle with this ocean material or most recycled materials. It's getting a consistent seed stream of color so that when we make 1 million products and we put it on the shelf, product 1 and product 1 million match from a color perspective. And so we have to have that base material match or at least be consistent enough where we can match the end product color consistency. And so that was the development of this material that took so much time, so much energy, so much effort. And ultimately, we landed on a process that involves multiple sources of material mixed together and then colorized in such a way that we can maintain that color consistency and still use this material that by many people's standard is junk material. But it's really been an exciting project.
I bet. So what other uses? I know there are different degrees of plastic. They're the kind that it's so rigid that when you snap it apart and you can poke somebody and actually hurt them with the plastic.
That's right.
And then there's other forms of plastic that's very flexible and pliable, and you can have them around a child. Those bottles, those sippy things, is what comes to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So what other processes can you use to put that type of plastic together? Could you make a whole product line of gardening tubes, for example, from it?
So we have, with the plastic that we use, we utilize approximately 12 million pounds of plastic a year. So, and with this program, we're utilizing about 1 million pounds. So we've got a lot of room for growth here to introduce this material to more products. Now, there's levels of complexities that I mentioned, and I like to call this more of an art form than it is a science. So to make that color match product 1 to product 1 million, we have to change around and kind of tweak the color settings in the process. So as we get better with that, we'll continue to expand that within our product line and further achieve the mission that we have as a company to utilize 100% recycled and reprocessed material. And so there's lots of room for growth there. The material that we use is polypropylene. And polypropylene has characteristics that are different from some of the other materials that you mentioned that perhaps may be sharp or become brittle over a period of time because of sun exposure and things of that nature. Polypropylene has some rigidity to it, but it also is somewhat flexible, which is the perfect material for a flower pot. Because if you think about a flower pot, it's used in many different climates and in many different settings. So it has to stand up to the intense heat of the sun and not break down and not fade in color. And it also has to be able to withstand severe cold so it doesn't crack, especially when you're putting damp soil inside of it and you're dealing with the expansion and contraction of freezing. So polypropylene is really the material that we use, and that's the reasons why.
Now, is plastic still a I know when I was growing up, I was taught that plastic was a byproduct of the oil and gas industry, where they took the materials that they don't use when they burn it off or something and then create plastic. Is that still the same, or is there a new process for putting different types of plastics together?
You're getting into an area that
you don't know anything about. Okay, my dad was a chemical engineer, so
chemical. Yeah, there you go. You got a good basis there, and I can speak to it a little bit, but my familiarity with the plastic is, yes, there is a correlation to the oil and natural gas industry. And on a virgin material, a material that's processed and made just for our products solely, that the cost drivers are the oil and gas market. So oil goes up, resin goes up, oil goes down, resin goes down. And but when you're getting and dealing with recycled material, there's different cost drivers. So this is material that is harvested from various areas. In the case of the program we're talking about today, it's ocean plastic. So we harvest it either from the waterways going into the ocean or from the ocean itself. And that's one of the cost drivers. We have to get that material out of those waterways. Then once it's out of the waterways, it needs to be sorted. Now we have a strict process of sorting that resin for color consistency, and once that resin's been sorted, it goes into a reprocessing process. So it gets ground up, and then it gets melted down and pelletized, and then we can run this again. So the cost drivers on a recycled material are not necessarily the oil and natural gas market, because the cost drivers or the fixed costs behind the product that we're buying or the resin that we're buying are it's the process of making it in the first place, and collecting it, harvesting it, and then reprocessing.
Okay, fine. Now I understand a lot better, because you said certain things that clicked in. So when you reharvest the plastic, do you actually decide what is going to be best used in, because not all plastic is created equally?
So we have to sort that by material type. The most prevalent materials that we get from harvesting this ocean plastic is HDPE, or polyethylene, a version of polyethylene, and polypropylene. Now, the polypropylene is what we can put into our products. That's the bottle caps and things of that nature. The bottle itself is a PE, polyethylene. And so we have to remove the polyethylene. And polyethylene is a very good and viable material for other products, but not for flower pots. Polyethylene is typically used in blow molding processes, and can be used in injection molding, but for the purposes of what we do, we have to get that polypropylene. And if we don't get a high concentration of polypropylene, we can have problems within our plant for processing and things of that nature. And also, what you were speaking to earlier, the rigidity of the product and the longevity of the product. So it really is an investment in sorting through this material on the front end to make sure that we're able to produce a viable product on the back end.
Okay, so with the propane, is that the stuff that makes the plastic float?
Float in the water?
Yeah, because most plastic that I know floats, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that's just a result of the density of the plastic compared to the density of the water. But probably, not real clear on the science behind it. Other than that.
Okay, I was just curious, because I would think that people have tried to use the recycled bottles for building ships or for the bottom of the ship.
Mm-hmm.
Because it floats kind of like a coconut. You throw it into the water and it bounces on the top of the surface.
That's right. Now, keep in mind, you're right. You're right in most instances. And when you see ocean plastic or you see plastic in waterways, it's floating. At the same time, however, there's documented studies and research that have shown that you can find plastic at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the lowest point in the ocean. So this is why it's such a problem. It's very difficult to get all of it out of the ocean, because there is there's this patch of material that floats around in the ocean, and you hear different sizes, but the most recent I've heard is it's 4 times the size of Texas. That's where they can harvest this this plastic from consistently. But to get the plastic out of the Mariana Trench, oh my goodness, what a nightmare that would be.
You cannot trawl it the way they would trawl for fish down that deep with nets. I would think it'd be almost impossible, because you're talking 1,000 feet, aren't you?
There's certain realities that we have to face, and that's we live in a consumer-based environment and society, and we have to make the products at the end of the day that are cost viable. And I can't imagine harvesting material from the bottom of the Mariana Trench, putting it through some sort of a reprocessing process, and then into a product would allow the cost drivers to be anywhere near viable enough for a consumer to buy it. It's a sad reality.
So what do you do after you sort it? What do you do with the rejects?
So we have a processing plant that sorts the material, and then they reprocess it. They'll sort it by as I mentioned, polypropylene or polyethylene. The polyethylene doesn't just get rejected or discarded. It goes back into a repelletized form as well, and sold off to other manufacturers that make other products, perhaps even additional bottles or things of that nature.
I would almost think it'd make a good type of insulation.
Insulation, yeah, you're right there.
And putting it into homes and stuff instead of the other stuff that has the fiber or whatever that's in them. And if you don't protect your hands and your face when you're putting it down or handling it, you risk getting whatever that you can from it. I guess it's cancer. But it would make a lot more sense to me to use the rejects if they're in pellet form, to just fill up those holes in the walls of buildings and homes as a protective layer. Certainly would keep the water out.
It certainly would. And I've seen even roads being made out of plastic now, or at least certain stories on that. I don't know how extensive that is, but it seems that people are looking for other opportunities to utilize any sort of recycled material that they can, just to repurpose it, reprocess it, and get it into something that has longevity.
And get it into something usable. Now, that big floating mess that's out in the middle of the sea that kind of makes it rounds.
Yep.
How long would it take for your company and other companies like you to really clean it up so it's not larger than the size of Texas?
Oh man, it took us generations to get into this problem. It's going to take us generations.
I was just curious because I know that some of the early plastic was really awesome with what they did with it, but now it's kind of like it's there. Let's make up more. And it bothers me that we have so much of this stuff out and available, and yet they're still putting out new products and new bottles.
It's a conversation that's happening every single day in the industry. I can assure you of that. And more focus is on utilizing recycled materials. There's conferences about recycled materials, publications on recycled materials, and really the push is to move towards recycled materials. And for a company like ours, where we make a green product, a product that supports plant life, a vehicle to hold dirt to grow plants. I mean, it's a perfect conversation for us, because not only are we growing something green, but we can have a green product behind it that supports that plant growth, which is just a cool story to tell.
I'm curious, is this biodegradable at all, or is it something that will last for the next 1,000 years?
Everything that we make is recyclable. So no, it's not biodegradable. There are products that are out there, as I understand it, where you can put additives into the material that ultimately degrade, but there's still remnants that are left behind. And those remnants that can be left behind are questionable as to how impactful they are on our food sources and plant and wildlife. So it seems to be a bit of an unproven or uncharted territory, but that's just the extent of my knowledge. I may be proven wrong on that.
Okay, I was just curious to see when you put your company together. I'm just curious on this, so you can tell me this is none of my business. But when you put your company together, did you have a backup financial team where you took it over to whoever you were going to get help from to set it up?
So I started the company back in 2012. I like to call it an American success story to a certain extent. Started it in my basement, shipped the first orders out of my garage, both my wife and I. My sister, my lovely sister, was my first employee, and we worked together for many, many years. And we grew the business over the course of the last several years to where it is today. And we have the opportunity of being good stewards of 120 different individuals and therefore families that support our mission and our objectives. So now that's the marketing and the sales side of it. My partners are both CPAs, and we have a CPA on staff, of course, and several other financially minded individuals. And we joke around that it takes several CPAs to keep this one marketing guy in order, and you have to have that balance of life.
Absolutely. I just wanted to know so that my listeners, if they're coming up with ideas of how to harvest the plastic from the ocean, they would have a point from which they can go from, because I think there are a lot of young people out there, out of college and stuff, who want to do something to save the earth, and they want to do something specifically within the ocean because there is so much crap in there. And I want them to understand that they too can do it, starting out humbly in a basement or in the garage or even in your bedroom with the closet, whatever is going to work for you, and then move up the ladder to where you can become larger than what you originally start out with.
That's right. It all starts with an idea. It all starts as a spark, and we want it to grow into a forest fire. And that's really where I think Bloom's success has headed. And certainly anybody who has good ideas, especially within this recycling field, there's so much potential, so much opportunity, because we're so much on the front end of it. This is somewhat, and it's a known, but there's so much unknown within this industry, and great ideas, especially around green products. Oh man, there's such a market and such an opportunity.
That's what I wanted people to hear, because they don't always believe me. So it's always good when it comes from somebody else. When you were growing up, you always listened to the stranger, not to your parents. It's one of those things, you know that.
That's
Ryan?
Right. I've got three kids, and I know that all too well.
You'll just send them to me. I'll give them all my wisdom over the ages, all three generations or whatever. Ryan, could you please tell everybody where they can find your company, Blooms, where they can find you if necessary, and all that other pertinent information?
Absolutely. The Ocean Series is available exclusively at Lowe's for this year. Look for it on shelf. It's in a beautiful denim blue, where we call it ocean blue. And go find that at your local Lowe's store, of course, once the pandemic is over and you need the essentials. You can find more about Bloom, the company, at bloomliving.com. Bloom is spelled BLOEM, living.com. And, check us out anytime. And we'd love to be a partner in your growing flower and garden expertise.
Actually, I have an idea for you.
Yeah,
after we get off. Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen and adults of all ages, you can listen to this interview all over again at https://passionateworldtalkradio.com. Right-hand side is the menu. Go down until you find Cool Your Heels. Click on it, and you can hear it. Or if you're technological challenged, we have a phone line called the Sizzle Line. Go and find the number on the web page. Call up that number, and you'll hear it immediately. You'll also hear it on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Google, Apple, Twitter, Facebook, of course with the /PWR network, in case you're wondering. So LinkedIn, you can find it wherever you need to find it. And before you go away and stray, Oliver Wendell Holmes had this to say in 1859, life is a great bundle of little things. Thank you all very much for listening, and remember, until next time, stay healthy. Thank you.
Lillian, you still there?